Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. Welcome back to what's going to be a really fun episode of Innovation Unplugged. I'm Houston Blackwood, Workforce Director for the Innovation Center, somewhere in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
And I'm Matt Heaton. I'm the Career Readiness Manager for the Innovation Center.
And by Zoom today, we've got a super special guest near and dear to my heart. She gave me my start in workforce in the college system. Dr. Courtney Taylor, she's the Executive Director of Accelerate Mississippi. How you doing?
I am doing great, and I'm real glad to be with y'all. I think it's going to be fun, too. So yeah, I'm ready for it.
Good. In all fairness to all three of our listeners out there, I moved out of the K-12 world and got into workforce at Calhoun Community College, and Courtney was the Director of Workforce Solutions there. She hired me. I guess there were nobody else that applied. She hired me, and then she quickly moved on to the system office. But she's going to tell that story, but I'll just say that it's such an honor to watch what you've done. And we're going to dig into all that today, but I'm here because of you. And I'll say that clearly. So,
really sweet.
Yeah, it's probably the nicest thing I've ever said to you. But I am.
No, I'm like, wait a minute. Now I don't know what to do now.
Well, it's true though. So, just give the audience a rundown who you are, where you came from, and how you got to where you are right now.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. I am Courtney Taylor. I'm from Alabama originally, born and raised on the Gulf Coast of Alabama, and worked in higher education for much of my career at Troy University. And where I met you, Houston, was at Calhoun Community College, which is still a very favorite career of mine, because as you kind of talk about it being seminal in your world, it also changed a lot for me there. So anyway, moved from Calhoun Community College workforce over to the community college system office in Alabama, and then was recruited to Mississippi to a facility called the Communiversity, which was at East Mississippi Community College, still is, but it's an advanced manufacturing training facility that they had built. It's in a very rural, middle of nowhere area, and so I was really excited about that opportunity. So I came over here to do that, and then a couple years later, got brought down to the state as a number 2 for this Office of Workforce Development that was brand new. Mississippi had never had a centralized workforce development office. We didn't have an AIT. We have a community college system. It's different than Alabama's. So they said we need one voice for the state, and so here's the office, and here I am.
Yeah. So I met recently with some folks from Pearl River Community College.
Yeah. Rebecca?
Yes, there were 2 Rebeccas. I forget their last names.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think one was Rebecca Brown. They were amazing, but what stuck out to me then, and I knew this already just from watching your story and having some friends in Mississippi, that there's not a Mississippi community college system. There's a bunch of community colleges in Mississippi, which I think really, even though we've had a system in Alabama for a long time, like we didn't have that singular voice. Even though we had a system office, we weren't really running like the same game anywhere. And so when I saw that Accelerate Mississippi came along, I was like, okay, that's very interesting and well done, to bring that singular push, to bring everybody towards some common goal. And so I think we can start there, really. Like, what has that been like to be that tip of the spear for that effort?
Yeah. So I would say, if you ever get a chance to start a new state agency, run, because it is painful in every way. But it has also been really rewarding. I think I came into the office about 6 months after it was started, and the upside of being new in the space of training, of all this stuff, is we didn't have old habits to break.
Yeah.
The downside is you have to build all brand new habits. And there really wasn't a model for how to do this, especially we're a small state, 3.12 million people. Like we're a pretty small state, population wise. And so we don't have the infrastructure. We don't need all of these different entities. We just need one for the moment. So it has been a wild ride in ways I cannot even explain, but it's honestly been one of the most rewarding experiences in my professional career, because I get to touch so many different types of projects, of conversations. We work on policy. So we work with the governor's office, we work with our senators and representatives on workforce policy. And for me, at least, I try to approach that from a very neutral standpoint. I'm not advocating. I'm just telling you, here's how it is, here's what's going on, and you have to do with that what you'll have to do with that, because I don't actually make policy. So that's been really fun, because you have to watch a lot of different things. And then the feds, are playing like Jumanji. And so there's a whole other aspect today with what's happening in the federal space. So you have that piece. I have had the just the great joy to stand up, for lack of a better explanation, our version of AIDT, which is customized training for new industries.
Yep.
So we work really closely with our state economic development office and our local economic developers on selling Mississippi. And my job, frankly, there, and my staff, I have, there's a whole team over there, but Trey Smith runs that for me. And you and him actually remind me of each other sometimes, but he runs that organization. And our job really is to sit in a meeting with a prospective company and say, we'll do that for you.
Yeah.
We will make sure that on day one, you have your people. And how we do that is fortunately up to us. And so we'll work through our community colleges, we'll work through private training providers, depends on the situation. So that's kind of two segments. And then we have another segment that is our career coaches. We have career coaches in almost every high school in Mississippi, and almost everyone that has requested one. We have a couple of nonprofits that operate some career coaches. So we have that program going on. Really proud of that program. We are in constant kind of iterations with that work to make sure we are engaging and exposing students to careers that they may not see on their own. And so that's a big effort that we have going. And then we have some funding that we offer to our businesses, to our community colleges, IHLs, just for training, workforce training, which we define very broadly. It's not non-credit. It's not necessarily short-term. It just depends on what the priority needs are. And so we've set that up. We had nothing. We literally started with nothing. My predecessor, Ryan Miller, he started with an office in a government building, and then, everybody has had to kind of build it from there. So that has been really rewarding and also really, really difficult. But, I used to say, and actually a friend of mine in Alabama had the statement when I worked for the system office, that I woke up every day looking for a fight, and I would die on any hill that I chose to die on.
Yeah.
And he wasn't wrong, but now it's I don't look for a fight anymore, because I wake up every day and it's in my phone before 6:30, But anyway, so that's kind of a high level overview.
Yeah, there's always something coming to you, a fire to put out for sure. What did you take from Alabama? The things you learned, not necessarily a process, but just the hey, you know what? I'm gonna never do that again, or I'm gonna do that every time. What did you take over from what you learned here?
So, it would be really disingenuous if I said anything other than Alabama built me. Literally. And I'm not being nice. The system that I walked into at Calhoun Community College, that you walked into at Calhoun, was set up by people that came before us and really made it easy to do this. And so what I brought from Alabama was kind of just the foundation of everything. I worked in education at a 4-year during the Great Recession. So I got to form a lot of opinions about students were going to crazy careers when companies were trying to hire them in soft skill or in short-term type programs, industrial maintenance, things like that. I also took this incredible structure that I only saw in one place in Alabama, and that was that. And this isn't the Calhoun show, but that's just where my experience was.
Right.
So I got to bring that over, and that has been a part of how I have approached our system as a whole, because we do not have the same kind of system you guys do, but I still have 15 community college partners that can deliver. Yeah. And so we do try to benchmark other states and kind of grow from there. I frankly, one of the things Mississippi has that Alabama doesn't is local control.
Yeah.
And I was really excited about that. And that has some positives. It has some negatives. So there are benefits to that, but not as many as I thought, just because of how humans choose to interact with it. It's you have all the authority, use it.
Yeah.
And I would say that a lot of times people don't use it, but I also think they didn't you don't know another way. Like you don't know there's a world where you could have to go to Jackson, Mississippi to get anything you want done. And so I kind of have brought that with me, that like this, let's protect this little baby called local control.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about education. I'm talking about government in general. And the other thing, our community colleges, and through our office now, we have access to some really flexible funding that we can use to create programs. And so there was a lot of things that when I was over there, we wrote grants to the feds. You and I worked on a couple together, and we're now in Mississippi, they can just write grants to me, and these can be very large grants for equipment, start new programs or whatever. So I think I brought I have been through the fire with all these federal grants, and I really love having a flexible pot of money that will help offset some of my costs as a community college of operating these programs, because they don't always stand on their own. And oftentimes the ones you need the most are the least profitable, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how it works. And to have a little bit of a cushion there is something and I'm really protective of it, probably to a fault, because the world I came up with, if I wanted to do a construction class with adult ed, then adult ed had to pay for it, and they were limited with what they were. I mean, you remember the days, right? And so I don't know how it is now, but I know that that's what it is. And then I think, just really across the board, I think there's just a deep respect for the profession, but also an intense lack of knowledge about what it is. And so working across 2 states has kind of helped me see like what's personality, what's system, and what's just kind of life. And that we are very similar in a lot of ways. And we also do have very different personalities in our culture. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of similarities. Like we won't tell the world, but there's a lot of similarities between our 2 states.
Mm-hmm. And the states don't like to admit that.
No. We're very different. I'm like, we're mirror images of each other. Like
Quite exactly. Yes.
It's different.
Did you know that just today, adult ed was placed under workforce development in the system office? Like as of a memo today. Yeah. So David Walters is the interim president at, Ingram State.
Yes.
And so he's focusing entirely on that. So they moved just through a memo today, and I don't know the backstory, but it happened today. So adult ed is now under workforce, and really for alignment purposes, funding and pathways and all that. So that when we were working together, that was a huge
and the
barrier.
Feds have moved all of this funding that normally went through education. It's all under DOL now. And so I think we have to really look at these policies. I think that's a cool move. If you're not just educating people to educate them at this point. Like
Right.
everything the Feds are saying is you got to educate them to send them to work.
Mm-hmm.
So we can educate them for the sake of it, but you also got to have this other piece of it. And I think they're serious about that. So that seems like a serious move to me. I'm sure it's not going to be without its challenges, but I'm sure it's probably trying to look at the world and respond to it.
Well, for us, it's a streamline. I think it cuts out a lot of barriers, a lot of historical. Hey, we've always done it this way. We've always had our process. Now you've got to work together. It's going to be really good. Barry May.
I'll tell you what I got in trouble for.
Yeah,
we'll start. I got in trouble for something that I want to tell you about.
Okay.
Talking about adults. Because I used to do podcast episodes on my own, and I don't do it anymore. Right this moment anyway.
Scratching the surface.
Scratching the surface,
Yeah,
yes. And on one of the very early podcasts, I explained the caste system that exists in community colleges, and it was not popular. So I'm gonna put you guys at risk. So I'm sorry, but I think forcing it all together does kind of change the perception of who's doing what, because what I saw in 2 different states was that academic is here, CTE is down a level in the way people view things, workforce is 3rd level, and adult ed is bottom tier.
Yep.
And you have people who say some pretty ignorant things, and I think largely adult ed is really misunderstood as to what they're doing. And one of the things that we found is the majority of adult education students in Mississippi are actually, they come in testing under the 6th grade reading level.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work to be done to acknowledge it. And so I think my point of all that is to say, I think putting it together does start removing some of those boundaries, to your point, and some of the silos and the egos maybe, and like, hey, y'all actually need to be doing this together. I love it.
Yeah. What's the work you guys are doing with the K-12? You said you had career coaches in every high school in Mississippi, exposing them to careers, and that's something that's in Matt's world. I'm kind of leaning to him on this segment, but what are y'all doing with that?
So we have a couple of different things. So the first step for us was really just getting our coaches report to, so we run the grant, but we run it through nonprofits, community nonprofits. So we have a lot of local ownership of our career coach program, which has its challenges, but it also, I think, has been wildly, at least, you know, in the hearts and minds of the people, very successful because they touch it, they feel it, they understand it. It's not I'm a statewide entity, right? So it's not some Accelerate Mississippi thing. It's their local neighbors. It's their local whatever.
Right.
So we're really proud of that work. I think a lot of what they have been doing is just serving as an additional guidepost for students who are just absolutely lost and need help. Backstopping, you know, counselors are super busy, as you all know. They got a lot going on. And so trying to help, you know, kind of hold the hands of these students and get them through. Again, really proud of that. There's effort. There's things that we want to do a little bit differently. You know, as we move forward, we want to focus on some of our, what we call priority occupations, things that we have gaps in that we need to close the gaps on. Everything from heavy equipment operator to EMTs, even to teachers and doctors, you know, like, so it's just trying to say, like, yes, you have all these options. Let me make sure you know about a few that you may not know about. And let's go from there. As part of that, we also were given, no, not as part of that, but at the same time, we were given a K-12 equipment grant program. So we do fund equipment for K-12 and have worked to try to make sure that we're only funding priority things, that what we are offering, what we are funding for K-12 actually in some way aligns to either directly to a job or to the secondary world, which is a lot harder than it seems.
Oh gosh.
In some cases. And we have even started over the last 2 years doing this more, but still not enough, of just teaching directly to high schools workforce classes. Which you guys are doing that with your Skills for Success. But one thing we found is, like, we would wait until kids graduated from high school. They don't have transportation. They don't have support. And then we're like, now you need to go to a workforce class. And it's like, you know, Billy didn't change in 2 weeks what he needed to do. So why didn't we just help Billy when he was in high school? Because the funding allows it. And I think a lot of it, I know a lot of it, why we didn't allow it, at least at the beginning when we got that fund, was just pure ignorance. I did not come from K-12. I don't know about K-12. And so there was a lot of concern that we would be double dipping or doing whatever. And so I've gotten a lot more comfortable today with some things. I have gotten very comfortable with the fact, and the very simple fact to me is that under its current structure as a state and a nation, I don't believe formal career technical education can solve the gap that we have in the occupations that we have gaps in. I think it can do some of it. It's not going to do it alone. It takes industry, it takes some non-credit stuff. And so that's how we're like, you know what? We have these CTE programs in high schools. They are seat limited. The reality is a lot of our kids don't wake up until their junior or senior year when they're like, oh, wait, I have to actually do something in a couple of years. So we've tried to come in with some of our funding. And our Department of Education has gotten a new course code started for different reasons, but it actually works well with this. And I think this one came out of do you remember the plumbing program that you ran over at one of the high schools in Huntsville, Houston?
Yeah, sure do.
Because we struggled with that stupid plumbing grant. And I remember that. And it's like, well, we did that then. Why can't we do that over here? And so that's what we're trying. Those kinds of things is we're not trying to make a plumber out of anybody, but if we can give them some basic skills while they're in high school, that either in the summer or when they graduate, they can go get one of these entry-level jobs as they try to figure themselves out, then that's what we want to do.
What's been your big challenge getting those high schools on board with that? Specifically the CTE directors and teachers who think they have got it all figured out. And I say that because it's the way they've always done it. They've always had the lay of the land and they've ruled it. What's been your biggest challenge in getting them on board with these new ideas?
I've not even tried to get them on board. So
Okay.
I don't need them. And that is a very aggressive statement to make. And I've had to make it too, even with community colleges. I want to use you and I want to partner with you, but I don't have to. And so that actually has helped a lot just in the reality that, yes, you have first option, but if your answer is no, it's going to happen.
Yep.
Either it's going to happen with you as a partner or without you as a partner. But we both know the end result is you're going to eventually be a partner. So come on over now. That's the aggressive side of it. But the other side of it is we just work with the institutions, the high schools, whomever, who also agree that these are problems that need to be solved. So we don't try to do it for everybody. If we have 3 schools that are interested, then those are the ones that we work with.
Okay.
We also lean really heavy on our industry partners. And so there's a lot of this that our industry partners are driving. And once they come to the table, the whole world change.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
we have our career coaches that have just such great relationships in the schools that they can help navigate some of this for us also. So it really is just a community project. There's not a ton of it going on yet. Like we're still trying to build it out. We are absolutely starting with the schools who have the leadership. That doesn't mean the superintendent. That doesn't even mean the principal. It means somebody in the school wants to champion this and provide this as an opportunity. That's where we're going.
So it sounds like you're offering this training in a space that is not necessarily in the K-12 schedule.
Correct.
It's not on the block. It's not on the peer schedule. It's and it's not even
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. It's not even in their building at first. It's just at a industry supported, community supported site. And you say, hey, we've got this class. Here's the time it's going to meet. Send your people if you want to.
That's the goal. So
Yep.
we're not fully there on all of that, but yeah. And it can be at the local community college also.
Yeah.
Sometimes what we have found is the school has the equipment.
Yeah.
They have what they need, but maybe they don't have an instructor or whatever. So it's like, well, okay, we'll just send this other instructor over there and let's run it as a workforce class.
Mm-hmm.
But we still try to leave the locals with the kind of the ability to drive that. But the other thing that you just hit on, Houston, is we have a capacity issue. Because of how we, and this is the game every instructor plays is like, oh my, we are busy all day, every day. No, you're not. Your class empties out at 1:00. Leave me alone. Like go sit down somewhere. So it's like, just let me have it for the 2 hours. You don't have somebody else in there, and so trying to get through all of that kind of stuff. We do have capacity challenges, and some of them are just in how we choose to utilize our spaces. And so trying to come that, and it's like, either we use your space or we go use this other one. You get to choose. And if you don't want us in space, fine, but it's still happening.
So you have created, like I've written tons of questions just in this realm down on my paper, but back to the funding and the career coaches, is that State Department of Education funding, or is your organization funding those career coaches?
We get a separate bucket for career coaches from the State General Fund. Department of Education is now a partner with us in this, but it is not their money and they don't run it. So the career coaches never do bus duty. They're not supposed to be teachers in any way, shape, or form. They are serving this role and they don't get pulled into the normal. I mean, y'all been in K-12. Like the goal in keeping it separate with these nonprofits is that they don't end up in those roles.
Right. I thought that's where that statement was going, but I like that train of thought and I have no idea that our funding could ever go to that. But if the career coaches were placed in the high school realm, but had that community college system industry connection to know what those workforce gaps were, not that our career coaches in Alabama don't know that, but they're reporting to
their K-12 employees.
Yeah, they're reporting to the State Department of Education, and there's tons of things there that they're responsible for when in our state, the community college system as a whole is kind of that breadbasket for workforce connection. So I like the train of thought behind that. I just wanted to follow up with that question.
Yeah, we did that very intentionally and again, it's a brand new program. There was no previous statewide structure. So it's very easy when you're setting up something new to be like, this is how we should do it. We had some missteps in there. So don't let me tell you everything was rosy. We hired, the majority of the original coaches were previous school teachers. So they knew how to navigate the school. Otherwise, I don't think we would have gotten that program off the ground. We got it off the ground in 3 months.
Oh, wow.
But that's because it was distributed, because we had all these local partners who were doing the actual heavy work. And I still think, like, there's things I would do different today, knowing what we know now, but I still would do it the way it's done. Because it also gets a lot of community buy-in, and it's not just seen as a person sitting over there and, advising students. I mean, they are doing industry tours. They are a lot of an external connection in our local workforce development. We have 4 local workforce development areas. They all run one of these grants, and they're all just super engaged with it. So I think for us, at least, we're able to better confront what the actual issue is when we find them. Like, is the issue the companies? Is the issue the K-12? Is it the community college? Like, what's the actual issue? So it is a little bit of a, I don't know, it's kind of a cool communication point that we didn't have before.
So out of the 15 community colleges you have and the funding for those high school career coaches, are those strategically placed and connected with certain community colleges, or is that just on each career coach to kind of connect with whatever's in their community?
Yep. So it is very much an intention to drive more students into their programs. How they interact is really depending on the culture of the region. So they live at the high schools, whichever high school has adopted them. They give them a place to live and all that stuff. And they do work with their community colleges, but not just the ones in their district. So we have these imaginary lines like everybody does. That frustrates the world sometimes, but they drive me nuts. But they can work across that. So if a student has identified a program, they can kind of help navigate them, which doesn't make people happy in some cases. But anyway, so yeah, they do work. It really depends on the over here, how we operate. We have the 4 local workforce development areas that were set up for WIOA and WIA and all that.
Oh, yeah.
They also work through our office for a lot of different funding, so that we're really connected. And those entities, they help run some of our economic development funding as a state. Like, it's just a different kind of setup. So they have really deep ties to our industry, to our office, to kind of what's going on. And so they're the ones that I think kind of served the initial point of bringing everybody together. But in most cases, our community colleges looked at it really quickly and said, wait a minute, we got some help with recruiting here. Let's double down and let's make sure, that we expose them. So anyway, they're not assigned, they're not whatever, but they do have their local colleges that they just naturally work with.
Yeah, that's still the thing here. Those boundary service regions. I get in trouble all the time.
I get it because especially in Mississippi, our counties fund a good portion of what our local community colleges do. So, like, okay, you got to dance with the one who brung you, right?
Sure.
Like, okay, I get it. Not hating it, but also when it comes to workforce, let's train them where they live so that they can drive when they need to go to work. And that's kind of how we approach it.
Yeah, we talked with RJ Webb about that earlier in a previous episode about training folks well enough so they'll stay in their area, and spend their money, and whatever they earn. What kind of pushback?
I was on a panel this morning. Hang on, and then push back.
Yeah.
I was on a panel this morning with a guy from a local industry who we worked with our career coaches and set up an internship through our local workforce development area. They did all the heavy lifting. But what he said was what we realized was that kids in our own region, they're the only big employer there, had no idea they were there.
Yep.
And so they've had to really double down on that. So, okay, push back. Let's go.
Well, that's a whole other topic is, what's behind that fence over there? What is that building really doing? Mm-hmm. And the kids don't know that they're making $25 an hour in there starting out. And
what do their websites tell you about what they do? It's like, here's the widget we make. And it's like, that tells me nothing.
Yeah.
So
the benefits, the wages and the bennies. I forget who coined that term. I saw it the other day on social media. I was like, bennies, what is he talking about? Is that a sandwich? No, it's like, benefits, dummy. All right, what kind of feedback and pushback have you had from decision makers, leaders, lawmakers, whoever, about the time you spend in K-12?
The time I spend, or?
Well, the time, all of your collective efforts with high school kids.
So, I had pushback myself when we started the office because all of the attention was on the career coaches. And I'm I'm like, wait a minute, we have all of these other, I didn't run that program, so I didn't really know a lot about it because I was the director. I think the pushback hasn't been from the time or doing it. The pushback has been, the whole saying, if you want to go far, go alone, or if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There have been times as an office where we have just had to go fast.
Yeah.
And we didn't have time to slow down to bring people along. You either got it or you didn't. You were either part of it or you weren't. So I think the pushback, and rightfully so, was like, wait a minute, you're doing this without us. I mean, like, we did this whole program, and I don't know how much we actually talked formally to the Department of Education. It's just, we got coaches, we're going. Now, if you're not careful, that can be seen as a slight to like, well, why didn't the Department of Education get this funding? It really was not about them at all. It was about making sure we protect this program and that the community is involved. Now, the reality is it's just kind of the nature of the beast with education. So I think most of the pushback that we have had, I would say it's probably somewhat deserved and somewhat just don't know. I think our community colleges got, I know, a little ruffled in the beginning because the workforce people had never been told to go work with high schools. They had never been, like, they had been excluded specifically, is that you start at 18 after they have a high school diploma. And I'm like, or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
And I had this really fun thing where sometimes I'm like, like, humans made all this. We can just unmake it. Like, all these rules that we depend on, we literally made. So let's just make new ones. So there's some frustration there, and it is different. It's a different mindset. It's a different population. If you go to serving 35 and 40-year-olds to a bunch of 16-year-olds, like, it is different. So I'd say we've had some pushback there. And again, the way we've chosen to handle it is, if you're trying to do what we have identified, or you are communicating with us things that you have identified, and you're an active participant, we're going to work with you all day long. And we may not, I'm not saying we're going to like agree, but we will at least hear you out and see kind of if we can meet in the middle. But if you're not doing those things, if you're not at the table, regardless of what your organization structure is, we're not worried about you. So you can throw rocks all you want.
So does your state's workforce participation rate kind of mimic our state as far as the age group where the biggest gap?
We're a little bit lower than you guys.
But to that point in Houston's question, this 18 to 24 gap, to where if you've got that ability to reach them earlier, can they become a full-time employee yet? No, but are we doing away with some of that 18 to 21 gap to where they figure out what in the world they want to do with their life to increase that percentage a few years quicker?
Yeah, we tackle it 16 and above. So we have a program out there called Reconnect, where we fund stipends, training stipends for people to come into some of our training programs. And we have just categorized it because, look, the feds do this whole in school, out of school, 18 to 24, 16. I don't care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They are 16 years old. And I don't even we don't even look at their socioeconomic status and how much money their parents make, because I don't care. If they want to go to work, if they're interested in trying to figure life out, we want to try to support them. And I think that is something we can do. Totally understand why the feds do it the way they do it. We don't have to, though. But that also has caused some issues because people they know what they know. And it's like, oh, well, we can't do that. I'm like, yeah, you can. I wrote the rules. Like, I know you can. I'm like, I promise you can do this. But I think like tackling the labor force participation rate after they graduate from high school is so expensive. Like, it is the most expensive thing you can do. So it's like, why not just catch them while we have them, and try to influence those numbers?
Captive audience is what we always say.
Yeah, they've got food, they've got transportation to get there. It's like, let's not make this harder than it has to be.
Oh gosh, yes. And we started some of our courses. We allowed 14-year-olds in, like food and beverage and hotel ops, like things where they could actually probably get that job if they could get there. Yeah. And then, it went kinetic, and we really ran into a what I call maximizing our budget issue, because we had so many kids collectively with the business industry and CDL. So we had to dial it back to 16-year-old, which I thought really fit, because heck, if they could drive, they're more likely to get a job than a
Yeah.
14 or
If
15 year
you
old.
can physically get yourself to work in a vehicle, if it's available,
Yeah.
you are way more employable than a 14-year-old.
Well, and I think that the online tool that you guys have, the Skills for Success, I don't know the right word, platform.
Yeah.
I think having the ability for them, even just to plink around inside some of these programs, to just experience them, even if they don't go into the labs and go forward with it, is
Right.
kind of a deep exposure than what you would get in a formal education. So I do agree with like, I like that part of it, that they can. Now, it's also, you have to explain why students aren't necessarily going to the next level, but I would rather them do it online on their own than have to go sit in a class and take a seat and then like, I don't want to do this at all, you know?
Yeah. Well,
I was pre-vet and I knew when I went to college, I had a weak stomach.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nobody was like, hey, Courtney, you shouldn't do that because you have a weak stomach. They were just like, enjoy.
yeah, I find you're so smart. You love animals. Gosh, that's, yeah, agreed. So we made that pivot. When you say you have these programs for 16 to 24-year-olds, describe for our audience, all three of them, what your training program looks like. What does Accelerate Mississippi do? Because I think our audience is pretty well familiar with Skills for Success and, you know, the theory, then the lab, then employment, or on to higher ed. What does Accelerate Mississippi's training look like?
Okay, so that's a very simple question. To date, we do not offer our own training ourselves.
Sure.
We are stood up as a training entity, and I will train if I have to. But so far, we have been able to work with willing partners for them to do the training.
Okay.
But what does that look like for us? Like I mentioned, this Reconnect program, we provide funding, and we try to put the funding in a box that based on some kind of internal policy says, like my governor, Governor Reeves's direction to my board. So it's important for y'all to know, I work directly for a board of private business and industry. So I have 5 bosses. I have 31 total bosses.
Oh, wow.
But I have 5 on an executive committee that are all appointed by the governor and the lieutenant governor, 3 by the governor, 2 on the lieutenant governor. And so there's a little bit of there's ownership shared here a little bit for the office. And so they told us, like, literally, the thing is, you work on things that get more people working, making more money. So this goes back to your labor force participation thing.
Yeah.
So that's why we have priorities. That's why we set things up like this. So our funding that we operate, we use it ourselves to do some things. And then we have funding that we give out to different entities to address and close gaps that we have identified. So that's community colleges primarily. We have a couple of university entities that do this. The programs look like whatever they need to look like in the community. None of them are, but they all kind of serve that need. We have an ag pilot program in the Delta. And you'll love this because, you know, my job is to be a little bit of a little bit of friction to frustrate people, right? And so when man, I'm good at it, right? Like that part of it. When Mitzi from the Delta brought me this program originally, it's very expensive per person. I'm like, we cannot do that. And it took a team effort to convince us that we could do that because it is so expensive. But it's so expensive, it's only for a few people. So we don't need 100 ag pilots a year. We need 8, you know, so 8 or 10. So it's a much smaller deal. So we have that kind of program over there. And then you go down to Pearl River and they have a whole slew of industrial maintenance, electrical type programs for existing industry. They have a trailer that they purchased with some funding that we gave them, that they literally take out and park on company spots, and they do upskilling for them. And so, you know, you think back to our time in that little building at Calhoun.
Yeah.
They had a mobile unit. Like, I would have given a lot at that time. I didn't even know that was like a possibility, you know? So they get to take it out to business and industry and drop it off and leave it, and go from there. And then we have, you know, we've got programs up with Amplify, which is a battery manufacturer that's new up in North Mississippi. And we've worked with 2 universities and the community college there to get training as the company needed it. And it really became like, you know, in theory, who the best person to give it is, but it's who can do it right now in the time frame that the company wants. So it really varies by region. We are setting up a training center here in Jackson because we have a capacity issue here. We have a ton of construction going on, and we don't have enough people who are being trained for construction. And our colleges are really limited on space. Not a lot of money in it. So there's not a lot of reason to run in and stand up all these new programs. So we're going to buy down the risk, and we have a community college partner. We have an organization called Build Mississippi.
Yep.
They're going to go work with us along with the local planning and development district. So I give you those examples because it is just so very different in every region of the state. And that's what's really fun about it, is because we have those locals, the local workforce development areas, to kind of help. We guide them, they guide us. It's kind of a give and take. I think it's got the flavor for whatever it has to have.
Courtney, tell us what would have been your best wins that you could translate to another state on your east or north or south that would help them do this same thing.
So I think that my best wins would be having flexible funding available to an organization, which means you have to have as much transparency. Like I default to transparency just as a natural deal, but I am bluntly and plainly honest about what's going on. And that's my response to how I try to protect this money. So I think having a flexible pot of money that can just solve the problems at hand, and the tolerance, because I work for private industry, that occasionally you're going to invest in something that doesn't work out.
Yep.
Shut it off and move on to the next thing as fast as possible. Don't drag it out, right? Like just move on. And so I think that is in there. I think the career coach is a massive win.
Yeah.
For the state, and it is not perfect. Like we still have plenty of work to do to mature that program. I think personally, for me, and we haven't talked a lot about it, and I don't really want to get into a lot of the details, but I get to work directly with the governor's office, directly with our legislators, and having being in the middle of that as what I mean, I'm a subject matter expert in workforce. I am not a subject matter expert in politics. And so having my board to kind of help guide me and make sure I don't step in it.
Yeah.
And I have stepped in it a couple times because it's not my natural state, but they have learned over time that I'm not playing politics with you. Like, here's the way I see it. Here's what's going on. That has been probably some of the most rewarding work that I never anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had told me 3 years ago that I was going to be doing this work, I'd have said, you are crazy. I can't do that. That's not my specialty. And so that has just been really, really rewarding. And I think it cuts out a lot of the noise.
Yeah.
Because it's not about funding formulas. It's not about all of this noise. It's like, here's the problem. Here's some things we need to look at now. Legislature, y'all go figure out what you want to do, or governor, like y'all figure out how you want to handle this. Here's our recommendation. That has just been insanely rewarding.
Yeah, I can imagine from their perspective, they'll probably never admit it, legislators anywhere, but your energy and your raw transparency, it's like a fresh voice from like, okay, well, that made a lot of sense. Thank you for saying it that way. And whether they liked it or not, the way they heard it, or they received it, the truth of it is sometimes those old historical policies just don't work. And it takes a new idea.
Like they know, like, don't ask Courtney a question if you don't want the answer.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a good place to be. Yeah. Well, final thoughts, Courtney. I appreciate your time, and an hour out of your days is worth its weight in gold, or maybe titanium these days, politically, economically. But what final thoughts to the audience out there? What if you wanted one takeaway to anyone who hears this episode? What do they need to know about you and Accelerate Mississippi?
Well, I think I'm going to make this actually about both of our states. I think, we have some efforts going on the coast for shipbuilding.
Yep.
With Jennifer Hall and that bunch down there. And we compete against each other for economic development projects, right? But that's it. At the end of the day, humans are humans and workforce is workforce. And so I think one of the other joys, and I didn't get to mention this a minute ago because I wasn't thinking about it, but there's things we're doing together now as sister states that don't require politicians, don't require they don't require laws. It's just the humans saying, y'all do this well, or y'all do this well. Let's just try to figure this out together. And it's taken us a few years to get the right people involved. And so I think what I would want the world to know, we're working with Melody Witten at times with the system office, I think there's a lot of work that has to cross the state lines depending on where the industry sectors are. And I think, we have our setup, y'all have y'all set up. There's no right, there's no wrong, there just is. And I think having the humans who are willing to try to figure out how do we close gaps together, because our workforce crosses state lines, I think has been a lot of fun. And then just to say, like, what to know about the office is, we're new as an office, but we're not new as workforce development practitioners. and that, I ultimately try to learn, and other states have raised us. And so when we get questions from states about things that we're doing, like, here's everything, like, what do you want to know? Because there was people in your state, people in Tennessee and in other states who have given us information when we needed it to help us through some little thing we were having. So I think there's a lot of willingness across the board that we may not see publicly to kind of learn from each other. And I just really appreciate that. I appreciate the humans who can put aside the fact, like, we'll go compete on the field, right? Like, we go knock each other's helmets off on the field, but when practice, we got to make sure we're working together. So that's been a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, glad to hear that. I certainly feel that way too. When we met with the Pearl River people, I was like, okay, well, this is fun. Let's go ahead and expand this thing and help them out. So, love that. Well, good. I appreciate that. Those deep thoughts, Courtney, and always your energy and passion for making things happen. For sure.
Well, I appreciate y'all. This was fun. It's good to see you too. I know we don't get to talk much, so it's also good to spend a little time with you.
That's right. Always indebted to you, Matt. Final thoughts, and then wrap this thing up like a Valentine's Day present.
Again, just appreciative to you, Courtney, for taking the time out of your day to be a part of this episode. And towards the latter part of this podcast, thank you for your willingness to blur those state lines and do what's best for U.S. citizens as a whole and the workforce industry. And we're eternally grateful for that, and personally looking forward to hopefully future collaborations in the K-12 world. I think there's some things we can both benefit from, and absolutely looking forward to that. But at this time, this is going to conclude another episode of Innovation Unplugged. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow on all your social media platforms. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.